Welcome to another episode of me reviewing highlights. As always, I include direct links to each of the passages that I'm going to talk about in this video, as well as to the books themselves. So, with that, let's get started. With the first one from The Way of the Shepherd. Your people are your greatest competitive advantage. Right. There's nothing to say here. Um, there's no, it's true. I'm not saying that it's like it's not true. Of course, it's true. I strongly believe it. But of course, there's not much else to add over here. We have talked about this at length. So, moving on. Tomorrowmind, one of the books that I just didn't get around to completing. So, some of our best lessons, some of our best lessons in life come from our mistakes. Graham advises. Today, he wears the label of the human error with ironic pride. So, it's been a while since I read this, and like I said, I've not even finished this book, so I can't really remember the context. I think Green was one of those people who tried a lot of different things, failed at it, got better at it, and then moved on to something else. And um, I've spoken a lot about failures and lessons learned. How do we look at failures and how do we learn from failures? So again, something that I agree with very much. That some of our best lessons in life come from our mistakes and human error with ironic pride. It's like failure. There is kind of like this negative connotation. Again, something that we discuss many times, that there is this negative connotation with failure, and even if we kind of like give this use this euphemism, learnings and everything, we still think of failure as a bad thing, and that is why this ironic pride. This is important because it's normalizing failure. It does not have to be. It does not have to be bad. Uh, it's a part of life, right? Ups and downs, like anything, it's part of life. And why do we have to stigmatize that down? The downward phase of life so much? Because it's a part of life. It's going to happen. It doesn't need to be hidden. So let's move on. The Song of Significance. By clearly stating our intentions, methods, and measurements, it may seem like we open ourselves up to criticism. Actually, we are holding our work up for improvement, which couldn't be more different. When your work improves, so does your reputation, and with it, your options and in your status. Right. So, I've spoken about this book before. It's written in manifesto language. This, on the other hand, I think it's quite practical. This reminds me of something else that I read in the other book called Measure What Matters. In that, also, the author goes on to say that OKRs, you open up your OKRs, and then there is always this fear that, what if I don't meet my OKRs? Uh, so that's the point. You like the author says over here, by clearly stating our intentions, methods, and measurements. That's kind of an OKR. At least it's to intentions and measurements are clearly OKR. Intention is the objective, and key results. Measurements are the key results. So it seems like we open up ourselves to criticism, but no, we are actually holding up our work for improvement. The transparency, that's what makes OKRs successful as well. As we see again and again that OKRs are widely successful. So, and the author says that when your work improves, so does your reputation. So it's like a win-win scenario. Your work improves and your position as well improves. Whatever you might be worried about in terms of career or status or anything, that also improves. So it's a win-win situation. Moving on, Bittersweet. Our stories will inevitably become our children's stories, but our children will have their own stories to tell. We want our children to tell their own stories. We wish them that freedom. We can wish the same for ourselves. Live as though all your ancestors were living again through you, said the ancient Greeks. And this didn't mean literally to reenact their lives. It meant to give them a new life, fresh and clean. Okay, this is. I'm blanking out on this, I think. Yeah, I think I'm completely blanking out on this. As in, look, what is the context over here? What was the author saying? I think like this highlight, I usually try to capture whole highlights so that it makes sense. But I think over here I'm not able to really make sense of this. the first part, that's pretty clear, that we wish that freedom, and we don't want to cast like a shadowy figure on our children's stories. They have to be able to tell their own stories. Yeah, I'll just move on. The six types of working genius. Working genius is central to productivity. When people in an organization understand and are transparent about their areas of genius and frustration, leaders can make adjustments that bring about significantly greater contributions from employees. At the end of the day, people get more done in less time and with less friction. We have talked about this a bit before. In the idea with working genius, it's kind of like a personality type in a way, and there are many personality types out there. So it is kind of like that, but also it kind of mirrors, or it kind of maps to um, specific phases of a project as well. And I think that's the brilliance of this. It's not just that, okay, there's a personality type and that's fine, that's okay. There are, like I said, there are many personality type assessments out there, but because it maps to a specific phase of a project, you like that helps you know what phases of the project can you contribute the most, where would you thrive, where would you leave a lasting mark. And like we say that people should play to their strengths and focus on what they can contribute best and so on, and then work in a team. And so that's it. Once we identify the six working geniuses in a team, and then assign those tasks to respective people. In fact, people will pick up those tasks themselves once they understand this thing about themselves. They will, like, so somebody who is somebody whose working genius is invention, they would naturally lean towards that research and development kind of tasks. Whereas somebody whose working genius is tenacity, they would go into the organizational aspect of the tasks, management aspect of the tasks. So, so I think that's the brilliance of this method, that it maps to the phases in the project itself. So yeah, moving on, get it done. When you've just started something new and want to figure it out if you're good at it, your completed actions increase your commitment and your missing actions decrease your commitment. The result is that novices are more motivated by the glass half full. Experts and people who are working on something that's very important to them don't question their commitment. They already know they care. If you have been doing something for a long time, you don't have to ask yourself if you enjoy it or if it's valuable to you. You're better able to sustain your motivation if you focus on what you didn't do. You look at the glass half empty. So this book, um, this book is kind of like um, it's kind of like a summary of the research of different methods of motivation. What increases motivation in different people and different tasks. It's not just about people; it's about the kind of tasks that they do and how do they associate with the tasks. So in this case, it's if it's something that's new and you want to figure out you're good at it, whatever you do, like each action you take, each task you complete towards completing that project, it increases your commitment. You identify more and more with it. Like, for example, if I'm learning a new project, each win I get, that okay, I was able to, for example, scaffold a new project, and I was able to write a new controller, or whatever the project is, whatever the task is. With each task, I begin to like that thing more. I begin to build that confidence that in other words, I'll find that commitment. So the result is that novices are more motivated by the glass half full. So the glass half full, the parts that we have already completed, that motivates us. Whereas on the other hand, experts who already know enough of that stuff, they don't have to find that commitment. They already care. They're already experts at that stuff. So the thing that motivates them is the things that have been left to do. So, for example, if I'm working on a project using a technology I always work with, then it's better for me to look at the things that I'm not done yet to motivate me rather than the things that I have done. Right. And like, I won't go into the explanation over here. A lot of explanation in the book is around research. This is something that's actually been studied, and that's what the author is telling us. It's like a highly technical book. In that way, it is very difficult to read also, but I think it's very useful. This book. Moving on, the talent war. If you want to be victorious, you need good leaders, and that requires transforming your high potentials into high performers. Again, I think one of those highlights that's kind of obvious, like the first one that we talked about. Not much to say over here. Um, of course, you need good leaders, and if it's just in potential, it's of no use. You need to turn them into high performers, obviously. Moving on, the well-lived life. We can't live in community and expect everything to be perfect or exactly the way we want it to be. Yet there's something so important to be gained from imperfection. I understand the desire for control, each of us in our own path, and we want to be in charge of how we walk it. But the beauty is that our paths can and will intersect with the paths of others. This can be such a beautiful thing. We can share the way in which we travel the path. We can tell others what we have learned and where we are going. We can learn from them. So the reason I highlighted this is, as I mentioned many times before, I'm dealing with my own issue with perfectionism, and this appealed to me a lot. That it's one of those things that I always knew, but it was important for me to read it in this way. That we can't live in community and expect everything to be perfect. People are, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I'm trying to look for a perfect word, right? But that's the problem. So people are messy. People are like unpredictable, and like the author says, understand the design. She understands the desire for control, but in a community, you're not going to find that. As we have discussed in many of the books, a lot of books that I've been reading, that comes to this conclusion that our need for control is what actually leads us to this state of discontent, and the state of unhappiness, general unhappiness with how we live. So, like another book is 4,000 Weeks, for example. Our need to control our own time, and that book is actually saying that you can't control your own time, and that's fine. That's how life is. And I think this is also saying the same thing in that way, that we can't control people. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect, but it is beautiful. Beauty is an imperfection. It's not imperfectionism. The diversity of nature, that each leaf is, in the minutest way, so different from every other leaf. They are similar, like on a tree, each leaf is similar in its own way, but it's different in its own way. That's what gives it beauty. If I don't want to stress this point. So yeah, I think that's the reason I've highlighted this. Like it's a message for me saying that, how to deal with my own imperfectionism. Moving on, the earned life. Aspiration is your best friend. Whether it motivates you or tells you to stop wasting your time, it's certainly an improvement on achieving a long held ambition only to end up asking yourself, is that all there is? So there are the author is kind of contrasting. So the author is describing a model with three A's. That's action, ambition, and aspiration. They're like the three dimensions of everything that we do. So anything that we do right now, like a short term, it's an action. That, okay, for example, I'm recording this video, and what's the ambition? That I want to get better at speaking. What's the word? Impromptu. Yeah, speaking with material that I'm not prepared before. That's the ambition that I have, right? So someday I will probably reach some marker. I don't really have markers set, right? I don't really have like kind of a milestone set over here, and but I think there is, like the activity that I'm doing right now, speaking into this camera, recording this video, posting it online. I think there is an end goal somewhere. I don't know. I'm not determined that yet, but there is somewhere. I think that there is an end goal where I feel satisfied that, okay, I no longer need to do this anymore, right? So that's an ambition, and we sometimes we achieve that ambition. We end up asking ourselves, okay, is that all there is? I did this, and is this what I wanted to do all the time? Was this like a good use for my time for this? Roughly 20 to 40 minutes I spend whenever I record this video and put it up. And that's where aspiration is our best friend. Whether it motivates you or tells you to stop wasting your time, that's a best friend. The aspiration is kind of like limitless. There is no final goal post over there. It's something that keeps you going. It always it transforms. True. It's not like aspirations never change. But there is no end goal. You don't stop moving towards your aspiration because it is done. You stop moving towards your aspiration when you learn something about yourself and think that, okay, like, stop wasting your time, do something else. You no longer want to do this, but it's never done. And I think that's what the author is saying. Aspiration is your best friend. Even if it tells you to stop wasting your time, you still have learnings. It's not done. You still have your learnings. You still go on. Moving on to clear thinking. Our desire to feel right overpowers our desire to be right. So it's like one of those tricky sentences to understand. The distinction is, of course, feeling right and being right. And being right happens when we know through study, through analysis, to the best of our capabilities. I don't think there is anything like, a complete factual state of being right, that, okay, oh, this is absolute truth, I know it for sure. I think that's, practically speaking, that's not there. Conceptually, sure, but practically, I don't think there is anything like that. There's always nuance to something. There's always caveats, scenarios, and everything. But that's not the point over here anyway. So the point is that desire, that, okay, that we are right, based on some study or some analysis, or based on some determination, methodical determination, that is overpowered by our feeling to be, our need to feel that we are right, right? And that's more about, um, kind of, it's more about feeling, right? Uh, that it comes towards our identity, that I'm a good person. I am something that, I'm someone who is competent, who is able to get to the truth, to find out what's right. That feeling, it's about that. And the book Clear Thinking, it's, of course, it's kind of like breaking down these biases, breaking down this, common situations that we come up against, and we think that, okay, this is what we want, and we, like, the first thought that enters our mind, we jump on it. That's not clear thinking. That's more of like the feeling right aspect of it. Whereas clear thinking actually lets you break down it. It becomes a methodical approach to, what you need to find out or what you need to do. So yeah, that brings us to the end of our highlights, and yeah, a little longer today, but we had like a whole kind of like a like a good mix. Some of them not much to talk about, but on others, I think we talked a lot. All good. And with that, I'm saying have a good day. Bye bye.